And hello out there. Well, today, yep, we are going to make some paper. It's really kind of fun to figure out and wonder, you have a sheet of paper here like this, that you might print out on your computer. How is paper made? And that's why we're doing it for science today, because the question we're going to ask is, how do we make paper? What do we do? What do you make it out of? And so whenever we explore things, we're using our superpower science skills. And whenever we ask questions about things, we're using our superpower science skills. And so the first question we're going to ask is, what are we going to do? Well, paper. We're going to actually recycle some paper that we can't use anymore for some other things. And so let me show you all the supplies that we've got to work with here today, and we'll go through it step by step and ask questions along the way. Well, I've got some white paper that I can't use for anything else right now because it's printed on one side. I've got a whole bowl full of scrap paper that we're going to cut up and use. And I even have an old egg carton, a paper bag that I got takeout from Taco Bell. I have some tissue paper. I have lots of construction paper. So we're going to cut that up and we're going to put it into the blender actually in a minute or two. And I do have a blender that we're going to use to chop up the paper and make it smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. And I have a bowl to put it in. And in case I make different colors, I've got several different bowls here. And we're going to make some little paper ornaments. And so I have some cookie cutters that are the kind that have the sides on them. And then I have also some canning lids. Those work too. I've got, oh yeah. Now I have a huge window screen. And we need something with screen on it to use. And if your window screen is too big to use like mine is, there's a couple other things that you can do. I have just some screening from my screen door, repairing my screen door, and I have a baking tray that you could put the screen on top of. I also made a frame by stretching some screen over the top with, and I duct tape it. I don't know if it'll stay. And I have a couple of cookie sheets. Oh, I also have some water. Do you have some water there? I see you got some things. Oh, it looks like you've got some paper and you've got some screening. Good. All right. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of water in the bowl. And I have a big bunch of water right here. And because we're going to soak some paper while it looks like you have some screening, so you might have to put it on something. And so we'll soak some paper while we're putting our screen together. So I'm going to get out my paper and decide what I want to put in. I put some water in my bowl. And what kind of paper do I want? I think maybe I'll start. Oh, I've got way too much water in here right now. I'm just going to start with a little bit. I can always add more. So I've got about half a bowl here. All right, so now I'm going to put some paper in here and I'm going to chop it up in little pieces. Are you good at chopping up things in little pieces? I'm going to cut lots and lots and lots and lots of little pieces in my bowl. Just to soak it up in my bowl of water. Lots and lots and lots of little pieces. This takes a little while. I'm cutting there, take a look. Yeah, I'm cutting more, I'm soaking it up. Well, I'll cut this up a little bit more. I'm doing all green right now. It's kind of good to separate out some colors that we can use. And I'm doing all green and I'm just chopping and chopping and chopping and soaking and soaking and soaking little pieces. That's what takes the longest, I think, is cutting the paper. Goodness. All right, so I'm gonna see if I can cut it faster. Whoa. Sometimes if you fold your paper over and cut through layers, you get more pieces at one time. Small pieces. There we go. Okay. Okay, there we go, there we go, there we go. Oh, I have lots. It's getting all soaking wet. That's good. That's what I want. So this is kind of a sciencey thing to do here. We're actually making a suspension. That's a big word, but let me explain that in a minute when I stop cutting green paper. And we are suspending little teeny pieces of paper in the water. And that's kind of different from some other things before. We've mixed lots of things with water and we couldn't get them out. Like when you mix salt in water and stir it up, you can't get that salt back out. You can get the paper back out. And that is a suspension. We're suspending little pieces of paper in water. Oops, here's some more. So I'm going to fold this green paper up. And then after I get some of this soaking, we'll get back to making a frame if you need to with your screening. Because the screen helps take the water out of the sludgy paper slurry that we're going to make here in a minute. Okay. Do you think I have enough pieces of green paper here? I don't know. Gonna find out. Whoa. All right, let me show you what that looks like. A whole bowl of paper. Whoa, yeah. Oops. Okay, so there it is, a whole bowl of paper. And I'm stirring it up and it's soaking and getting pretty good in there. And I used just all green this time because I want some green paper. Okay, so while we're waiting for that to soak up just a little bit more water, I saw that you had some screen. So if you have a window screen, you can, I'm coming back to FaceTime, whoops. Uh-oh, here we go. If you have a window screen like this, you can use that and set that over a cookie sheet. But this is really, really big. So I'm not going to use my window screen. I am going to use a cookie sheet and a cookie cooling rack that I'm putting right on top of the cookie sheet like this. And then I'm going to put my screen, I'm going to cut it the same size and put it on there. So that's how I'm going to dry out my paper. And that is what it looks like. A layer, the screen, the cookie drying rack, and my cookie sheet. Okay, so there we go. So now what are we going to do with all of this green slushed up paper? We're going to put it in the blender and kind of make a slurry. A flurry. You know, if you've been to Dairy Queen, they give you flurries. Well, we're going to make that in our blender. And we're going to chop it up even smaller than it already is. So get out your blender. And I'm going to move it here so you can see it getting chopped up. My table is kind of small. There we go. There's my blender. Okay, so I'm going to put all of that paper into my blender. I probably don't need all that water. There we go. I'm going to scoop out some of that soaking wet paper and stick it in the blender and slush it up. It'll turn to paper pulp. And when commercial paper is made, they start with wood pulp. We're going to start with paper pulp. There we go. All right. So put my lid on. So if you've got some paper all slushed, all cut up, and put in water. I put it in the blender and I'm gonna cut it up. Pulp it up. Whoa, yeah. Let's see. Whoa. I am totally making a mess. Let's see, I need to strain some of the water off, I think. There we go. I put in too much water, so I am taking out some of the water by straining it. There we go, that's a little better. And, ooh, yeah, always have paper towel around for messes. I should, because I've got a real good mess going on here. Whoa! Try to get that. There we go. How are you doing out there? I am making a huge mess, but it's getting there. Can you see how the paper pieces are getting even smaller? We're gonna do it even smaller, and I can drain out just a little bit more. I have way too much water. Okay, and I'm gonna turn it higher, maybe on a higher speed. Puree. Whoa, let's check it. How'd your blender do? Whoa. Let's check it out. Oh, wow. I think I need to do it just a little bit more. Almost though, look at that. All right. Okay. Now I think we got it. All right. So I'm going to turn on the tabletop camera and show it. Well, maybe I can show you pretty good up there. Let's see how that is all pulped up. So we have some green paper pulp. And so what I'm going to do is stick that into my first bowl. There we go. What I'm going to use. Now let's make one more color. I think we should. So I'm going to put that, I'm going to put my blender aside and wipe up my table because I made a splashy mess here a minute ago. And I think we're going to start and make some more paper pulp. Look at that. That's what it looks like when it gets all squished up. So let's see. Let's make a different color. I've got a bunch of green in here. So maybe we'll start again with a different color. So at least we'll have two colors. So I have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of colors. I think I'm going to do red and pink. And I'm going to use a little tissue paper in it too. So here's some red. And I'm going to chop this up as small as I can, red and pink. And then we'll have two colors to work with when we get to that point. So here we go again. One more chop, 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 chop. As much small pieces as you can of a second color. And we'll put some other kinds of paper. This is construction paper that I had for a scrap. And we can use this. And it will already be pink when we get all those little pieces cut up. This is the part that takes the longest. This is where we kind of have to be patient. And make sure we get little pieces. I got a bunch in there. It's getting there. Chop, chop, chop. Whoa. Some of these pieces are just too big. I'm trying to cut little. This is gonna be such a good color. Yep, it's gonna be such a good color. What is gonna happen after we get 2 colors of pulp, what are we gonna do next? Okay. Whoops, here we go. Chop, chop, chop. I'm getting there. All right. So there, I got a bunch. Oh, I was gonna use some tissue paper too, wasn't I? Yeah, that's a good idea. So I'm gonna fold it up so I can chunk little pieces of that in there. And whatever paper that you have, you can use. This is gonna be great. Tissue paper will, I think, soak up a bunch of water. Okay, so chopping that. So that's, I think, enough. Put that aside. Oh, wow. There, I got a lot. So I've got a lot of green paper in my blender, and I'm going to need to clean out some of that, I think, before I do the next batch. So I'm going to take the base off my blender and get some of that green out, because I don't want green in my red. Too much, anyway. I think what happens is the colors might mix together. I don't know what would happen if I got green in my red. We'll find out. So, all right, clean that up a little bit. Stick that back together. Whoa, there's a lot of green going on here. Okay. All right, so time to soak my new color with some water. Okay, so here we go. And you know, last time I think I put too much water on it because it was splashing out all over my table. All right, but I put in a bunch of water and I'm going to stir it around with my fingers. Ooh, that's just perfect. All right, soak, soak, soak. Let it soak for a second while I put my blender back together. All right, and move my blender in the middle so you can see what we're doing. Okay. Oh, there's still a little bit of green in there, isn't there? Okay, I'm wiping that out. I don't think that'll hurt too much, though. Okay. All right, so here's my red. Oh, only some of it came out. How you doing there? Were you able to do some paper pulp from your first color? Yeah? Okay. All right, so here we go. And a little bit of green on my lid, that won't hurt. Okay, so here we go with the second color. Whoa, I think I did pretty good. That one was a little faster because I don't think I have as much. Ooh, there, you can see the paper pulp. We chopped that up really good. And I'm going to put that in a new bowl. Okay. Well, you can make as many colors as you want. You can even, I'm going to put this aside. You can even use the white paper that I was talking about. Chop that up really fine and then put your own color in it with food coloring. That's one thing that you could do. We won't do that today right now because this is taking quite a long time to chop up the paper and make the pulp. But that's one thing you could do is white paper and food coloring. I just happen to have some really nice colors of construction paper. So now we have red and we have green. And let's get started to actually pressing the paper. How are we going to do that? We have 2 great pulpy suspensions. And now you can either use your big screen or cookie sheet with a screen on top. Now, what I'm going to do is use a couple of different shapes. One, I have a cookie cutter in the shape of the Lower Peninsula of Michigan, and I also have a round canning jar shape. So I'm going to set those onto my cookie sheet just like that. Now I have a bunch of shapes. I have a dog paw and a heart. And what else? Oh, I have a duck. So I have all of those And let's see how we're going to make the paper. I am going to change again to the tabletop camera so you can watch and see what we're doing. It'll be great. Here we go. Okay, so there you can see my Michigan. You can see all of my other, my heart, my Michigan, my dog paw, and my duck. Where's my duck? My duck is off the screen. My duck should be over here. Okay, there's a duck. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a color of your paper pulp, and you can use your hands like I'm doing and stick it into the center of the shape. See how I'm doing that? I'm just clumping that in there and pressing it down. Now you don't want to fill it all up because you want it to be a little bit thin when we're all done. So I'm going to do, oh, since I have red, I think I'm going to do some of my heart, some of that squishy old pulp. Stick that in there. And I got a bunch. And I'm going to do some green. I think I'm going to make my Michigan one green. Whoa. And if I had done yellow, I could have done my duck yellow. Okay, so that what's happening is the water, we're getting the paper pulp out of the water. We're ending that suspension. We're squishing that water right out of the paper. So here's my green, and I'm going to use a big clump of green in my Michigan, like this. I got a little bit of red in there, but that's okay. And spreading it around into my cookie cutter till it hits all the corners. And the water is dripping out of the paper pulp and dripping through. Okay, whoops. Do I have it all covered? Not quite. Okay. So I'm putting it in there a little bit thick. Okay, so I think I'll do green dog paw. There's my dog paw. Sticking that in there. And what happens to the water that was all in there? Now that one's going to be thick. So I have one left. Now, you don't have to make it all green or all red or whatever color you have. You can do half and half. Like that. So my duck is going to be half green and half red, or whatever colors you make. Now you can make as many colors as you want ahead of time. It just takes a while to make your colors. Okay, there we go. Ta-da! Oh, you know what? My heart doesn't have enough red in the corners. It's not a heart shape. Hey, come on. Let's get that taken care of. There we go. Okay. So now the paper is in, the paper pulp is in our cookie cutter shapes. And so now what we do is we take our fingers and press and press and press. And what we're doing is we're squeezing the water out of, we're squeezing the water out of the pulp. Squeeze, 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 squeeze all the way down. See that? As I'm pressing, the paper pulp is taking the shape of my canning jar lid, and I'm squeezing that water out as I press it down. And then I have to kind of look to see, I've got some gaps over here. And I might have to press and press and press, and whoops, it came apart there a little bit. There we go. But you press it all around and you squeeze that water out of each one. Now, I'm squeezing the water out of the heart. I'm pressing it down really tight to the screen. The water's going through the screen and ending up in my cookie sheet. Want to see? Look at all that water on the cookie sheet. It was in the paper pulp, but now it's dripping through the screen. And I am making paper. And you press each one down. Now I'm going to press Michigan. Now I put a little bit more paper pulp in Michigan. So I've got a lot of squeezing to do. And you make it as smooth as you can. The Lower Peninsula of Michigan. And there's my duck. Now, squeeze until, oh, all of that water drips through and it gets quite dry. So now I'm going to do kind of like a free form one without a shape. So I'm going to move. Nope. No, I'm not. I'll just move this so you can see it better. Okay. Right over here, we're going to do a freeform shape. So you'll have a piece of paper. So I'm taking my pulp and just putting it right on directly onto the screen. And you can do this. And then you could even do this into a shape, and you could do it as large as you want. There we go. Freeform shape. I'm pressing it down. I'm getting the water to go out of it. Uh-oh. It broke. There we go. And you might even, like you have a freeform shape, you can even add some seeds and some seeds and leaves. So it'll be really pretty. You could use it for a card. So I have some leaves right here. And I am going, I also have some milkweed pod seeds on my hand. I'm going to press a leaf into my paper. Just like that. There we go. Press the leaf into my paper. There we go. And to get that to stay, you can take a little piece of tissue paper and get it wet. Let's see. Okay, I got a little piece of tissue paper that I got wet, and I'm going to put it right over the top of my leaf so you can see the leaf through the tissue paper. See that? So when this paper dries completely, that leaf will be held in place. Pretty good. So I'm going to do that with the other leaf. So I'm just taking a piece of tissue paper, getting it all wet in my water, and putting it over the leaf. So you can still see the leaf, but the tissue paper holds it down. There we go. Okay. So it takes a long time, I think, to press all the water out of your cookie cutters. But eventually, just keep working at it, and you can do it. There we go. And there it is. Now here's where some more science comes into it. If you have all these wet shapes that you want to dry, we've learned about evaporation before. If you just set it in the sun to dry, if you just set it in the sun to dry, when it dries, you can peel off a piece of paper. It stuck to my hand and I ruined it. There we go. Not quite, but it's got to dry before you peel it off. It stuck to my hand while I was pressing it down. But there we go. Yep. We're just going to have to wait until it evaporates, and then we'll have a shape, a paper shape. And that's how paper is made. From pulp in a suspension of water. You can have, I'm going to take this paw print off real slow. There we go. When that dries, when the water evaporates out of the paper pulp, you'll have a little shape. Mine's a dog paw. All right, so back to FaceTime camera, and we'll check in and see how we did. There. Okay, so I'm going to hold this up to the camera so you can see it. Now the part comes where you have to wait for evaporation to take over so that your shapes will be solid, and so you can hang them up in your window when they're dry for a little ornament. And if you do want to hang them, you can take a pencil right now And let's say I wanted to hang up my circle shape. You could, while it's still not dry, you could take your pencil and make a little hole right in the center. You can see that little hole. So later, you can put a string through it and hang it up. Or if you press it down thin enough, like the one with my leaves on it, you can use it in a card that you send to somebody. All right, so there we go. How'd you do? Well, thanks for stopping by today and joining First Step Science, where we learned about paper making. I saw something I had never ever seen before. And here's where you get to make a choice. Was it a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex? And I'm just gonna stick some pie cones in my box, and then the fun starts. I just start rolling them around. The air rushing out of the balloon is gonna push that balloon up. So let's see what happens. All right, 1, 2, 3. Oh, wow. So that's how rockets kind of work. We are going to build 2 different kinds of rockets today.
Put the cork on his